everyone. Welcome to At Matters, presented by the Outer Loop Theater Experience, where we create art that matters. I am Melissa Wilson, and here on this podcast, we like to create a space to explore the question, what are we here to do? And who are you?
Who am I? My name is Rachael Yoder, and I am one of the artistic directors of the Outer Loop Theater Experience. Who is here
Awesome.
that we can't see?
I am here. It is me.
Disembodied
you?
voice. Who are you?
I am Michael Herman, and I am the founder of the Outer Loop, and I am sitting in as the producer of this episode along with Melissa.
Amazing. He's like our Jarvis for this episode.
Is that a Gen Z reference?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
Are you guys not Marvel people?
What's Marvel? The comics
we're
stuff?
not. Shamefully, we're not. I know. Yeah.
I thought I could count on you for that reference.
I know we are nerds in other ways, but that is not one of them, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jarvis is like, Iron Man?
Yes.
Okay, great. He I know talks
what that
to him
is.
from inside his suit. Anyways, it's not important.
It's a perfect reference. I love
it. Thank you. Okay, do we have a game to start us off?
We do have a game, and the reason we like to start with the game is because just like in theater in a rehearsal, we just need a transition between where we've all been to where we're all going to get on the same page. So this game, which we encourage you to play along with us as you listen, is called 5 Things. It's from improv, and the point of the game is I'm going to list a category. I'm going to say 5 things that something, and then Melissa has to just name the first 5 things that come to mind. The point is to not think about it and to just say whatever comes into your head. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. 5 things that you wish more people knew about theater that you think they don't know.
Oh, how hard it is, like how hard the process of making a play is, how hard it is to succeed in this industry, but also how hard, or like that you can succeed in this industry, basically, like that there are real people that have real jobs that are doing theater for a living. Okay, 2 more things. I wish people knew how fun it was. I think a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. That's so scary. And like, that's fair. But also, theater's just a silly, goofy time. And that it can like create real change and help people gain empathy and change the ways that they think about the world. So
amazing. Those were so good.
Those are my 5 things. Thank you.
Love it.
All right. My 5 things for you are name 5 plays that you have done before that you want to do again. And you could be the same character or a different character. That doesn't matter.
Oh, this is so good. Okay. Number 1, 3 Sisters. Ooh, sorry, Michael. Michael doesn't like Chekhov. I love it. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. Number 2, Richard III. I am obsessed with that play. I would do it forever. I also think it's very relevant right now. So I'd love to do it right now. Ooh, are they all going to be Shakespeare? Winter's Tale. I love that one too. It's like the weirdest Shakespeare because it's like half tragedy, half comedy, but I love it. Would do that one again in a heartbeat. Ooh, another one. Oh, okay, I haven't done this one, but I was a part of the producing team and I would love to do it again. But 13 Suits, A Mother's Monologues by the Outer Loop Theater Experience. Oh, I wonder if I get to do that one again. Ooh, let's see. And then another one that I would love to do again. I'm trying to think of something that, oh my God, The Wolves. I had so much fun doing The Wolves. Do you not know that play?
No, I don't.
You need to read it immediately because there are at least 5 different roles that you would slay in that show.
Amazing.
It's about an all-female soccer team. It is so good. It's by Sarah DeLapp. It is so fun. That was my last like show in person before the pandemic ruined everything. So I would love to get a chance to do that one again.
Yeah. That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay, and I feel like this transitions us pretty seamlessly into our topic for this episode, which is when people ask you the question, why are you an actor? What do you say? Do you have, like, what would be your go-to answer to that question, Rachael?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think my go-to answer, and I know it's my go-to because I know I say it a lot. I'm going to quote Stella Adler, and also shout out to my time at Stella Adler studio in New York, because this has really stuck with me. And I think it cuts to the core of why I'm an actor and why it's important to me to continue to grow my craft. But the quote is that growth as an actor and growth as a human being are synonymous. And
Mm.
I think that that just really captures the essence of like acting at its best. I think it's the study of what it is to be a human being. It's the study of what is humanity? What are we all doing? Why do we do what we do? Why do we say what we say? What motivates us? Like what is this human experience? I think at its best, that's what it's about. That's what I most enjoy exploring when I'm, when I'm creating and when I'm acting. So that's my biggest why. What do
That's
you
cool.
say when people ask you that?
I say because theater is a really cool tool for social change, because people will go to see a play about something that they might never be willing to read a book about or a news article about, or they may never befriend or have a conversation with someone who is experienced, but they will go to see a play about it. For example, I grew up in a super conservative Christian household, and my family is like still very much in that world. But in college, I was in Rent, which, if you're not familiar, is about the LGBTQ community and the AIDS epidemic. And my family, of course, came to see me to support me in that show. And it started just a lot of really healthy conversation for us to just learn as a family about this community that for my whole life had been very othered for us. Not in a hateful way, but it was just never a part of our lives. But my family got the chance to come and see this production. And I think it just opened their eyes to a lot of love that is necessary to everyone in the world around us in just a really cool way. So yeah, that tends to be my main why for why I do theater.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's just really, first of all, very cool that you had that experience. So you do feel like after that show, you were able to engage in a discussion that you previously wouldn't have been able to engage in with your family around those topics?
Yeah, I think it's a discussion that we could have had, but I think it just created a common baseline of understanding that wasn't there before. That it's like, okay, before we all had this common baseline of understanding that maybe was missing a big chunk. And now, okay, we've all been brought together again, but in a new spot. So we can have this conversation, but all coming from a different lens that we were at before. So yeah, and I've just really appreciated the way that my parents and my family as a whole have been able to just continue to like process things as a family. And a couple years later, I was in a show about gun violence, and okay, the conversation's now about this. It's just been really beautiful, and I'm so grateful that I've gotten to play a small part in my family having those discussions.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think I've had a similar experience, but kind of from another angle with
Hmm.
so my dad is sort of famous for saying that he would rather get a root canal than see a play. So like theater is not his
Oof.
not his favorite thing to do. So it was always like, all right, I guess I'll come see the shows that you're in, but getting him to anything
Hmm.
else was kind of a challenge. But my parents recently went to see, and like good on them, without me, they went to see production of Sweat, which
Hmm.
that are you familiar with that play?
I'm not, no.
Okay. What I like about it, it takes place it's like pre-election kind of turmoil going on, and
Hmm.
it does similarly to what I think you were just describing. It takes like a sort of big political hot button issue and it makes it personal. So we're not talking about
Hmm.
broad concepts of like, like with Rent, it's not like a broad concept of let's talk about the LGBTQ community, let's talk about AIDS. It's these personal stories, these people's
Hmm.
experiences with this larger problem, which I think is what helps engender those conversations afterwards. It's like, oh, well, I felt for those people. Maybe as an idea, I don't like that idea. Oh, but look at those people, look at their circumstances. I have empathy for that. So for instance, with Sweat, a lot of what's explored is kind of the, early beginnings of what the Republican Party kind of looks like now, and how fear was very much being used as a tactic to manipulate voters. And my dad, after experiencing that play, sent me first of all, liked it, amazing, and then sent a text saying, I can see now how political parties use, fear as a tactic to influence and manipulate people. And sort of, it's not, oh, well, people who think differently from me are stupid or whatever, and they don't get it. It's like, oh, I can see how these people have been manipulated by larger forces, all because, oh, I saw this play and I watched how this played out, these larger issues played out on these specific people. So I think you're hitting on something that is really important. Part of why we do what we do is that it's another way in. It's not like academic understanding. It's like a feeling, gut level understanding of these issues.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something important there, even just within the concept of empathy. This isn't just only in theater, but that seeing those things is powerful to be able to understand a different side that you couldn't understand before. That doesn't mean that you need to exit that play suddenly agreeing with everything, like suddenly having changed your entire tune on an issue. Like, I mean, maybe that happens, but maybe it doesn't. And you continue to have the opinion that you had before, but you just have a little more compassion and a little more care and understanding for this like other side of an issue.
Absolutely. And I think that translates. That's why I think there's a lot of responsibility on the actor to do a really thorough, careful job of the human being that they create. Because I think the performances that are the most compelling and the acting that we find the most compelling, that I would consider to be the best acting, is someone who has created a full human being on stage. And what I mean by that is that you have to bring both sides of who we are as people. And we're all capable of really wonderful, really good, lovely things. And we're all capable of really dark, really devious, awful things. And that's true about all of us. And so I think somebody who's able to integrate both sides of that and show us a full human being on stage, that is what then generates that empathy. And if any of that is missing, I think those are the performances where you feel like, yeah, something's off. Like that wasn't a full person. I'm missing some truth of what that is. And in owning those dark parts, and integrating them with the light parts and showing that to an audience vulnerably, it takes a lot of vulnerability to be able to do that. It helps other people accept, yeah, my darker maybe impulses that I'm less proud of, but I can see how that I can make a different choice, or that's okay, or it's okay to acknowledge that these things are present in all of us.
Yeah. I think that leads too into something else that I was wanting to talk about, which is just how beautiful communities of theater makers are. And I think that it's because of what you're saying, that it takes so much vulnerability to break down, okay, who is Melissa as a person? And I need to know exactly who Melissa is so that I am not taking her into this other person unintentionally, right? Like, to be able to create a full another person inside of myself, I need to know who I am first. And so that takes, yeah, just so much self-awareness and vulnerability with the people around you. And I think that some of the most like wonderful communities that I've been a part of have been within shows or when I was in school for acting. And those were communities where there was a lot of political disagreement, social disagreement, like so many different things that I think can frequently tear people apart. And yet I met some of the most understanding, empathetic, vulnerable people in those times, because I think that's just who we have to be in this industry.
Absolutely. And I think at its best, certainly all theater artists are just like seeking the truth, and we're trying so hard.
Mhm.
What is the truth? And like you said, what is the truth of who I am? What is the truth of who we are as people? And the best theatrical collaborations are, so okay, from my actor's perspective, this is what I think the truth of this character is. Here's what I bring to the table. The director's got, a wider range of, okay, here's what the truth of this story is that we need to tell. And then the designers have been put in. It's everybody in conversation about what is the story we're
Mhm.
trying to tell, which is what is the truth of being alive in this particular story, and how do we best do that together? It's inherently collaborative, and it creates a discussion about, I think, the really big issues that we all face, the larger problems, like what is it to be alive? It's like there's no bigger question than that. What are we all doing here? What's the purpose? Why are we like this? And you're right. It Because it's so collaborative, it creates for really wonderful conversations. And it is a beautiful community because it's a bunch of people struggling with, what is the truth? Which I think is a noble pursuit.
Mhm. Totally. And I think you bring up a good point that it just takes humility, because it's not just me creating this new person in a vacuum. There's also the influences of the other actors, like the other characters upon my character. Like I might think that I know exactly who she is going into a rehearsal process, and then I meet my scene partner and I'm like, "Oh, I've been doing this totally off. There's something I've been missing." And then there's the director, whose vision is obviously incredibly important. And then even sometimes I feel like you put on your costume or you get your props for the first time and you're like, "Oh, I was missing something here. Oh, she interacts with the world in a way that I couldn't have understand until I put on this hoop skirt," or whatever it might look like. But yeah, it's just such a uh because it's so collaborative, there needs to be so much humility in that.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point earlier, and also in what you just said, from the perspective of devoting your life to the craft of acting, removing for a second the audience's experience of it and why that all matters, but just what it does for you as a person, it makes you a better person. I mean, you have to grow as a person to be a better actor. Like you mentioned, self-awareness.
Mhm.
Yeah, you absolutely have to have a very heightened level of self-awareness to be able to understand, okay, yeah, who is myself? What is the character? Be able to move between those two things. So increase self-awareness. Actually, all of the competencies of emotional intelligence you have to heighten in. So self-awareness, self-management, relationship management to stay in the collaborative process, all of that. And we know that increased emotional intelligence pays many, many dividends in your ability to be successful as a human being in the world. So there's that
Mhm.
aspect of it. Also, what you just brought up is the ability to listen and be present in the moment. That
Mhm.
is a skill that I have seen is lacking just in the general public. People are distracted. They are, for the most part, not listening, not doing that deep listening of moment to moment responsiveness. What am I getting from the
Mhm.
person that I'm talking to? What's underneath what they're saying? What's the surface level and then what's hiding underneath that? We've lost the ability to, ask questions to get at the deeper why behind why people are saying what they're saying. And that's all acting training. That's what it teaches you to do, is just to be present in the moment, listening to your partner and responding. That's why theater is different every night. Every performance should feel different every night because you're always going to be getting
Mhm.
something different from your partner. And that's a skill, whether you're an actor or not, that acting training can really help you arrive at. And that just pays off in your life so much.
Mhm. Yeah, what you were saying is making me think of, I teach acting as well, to like K-12 students, and my high school class had their final performance of the semester a couple days ago, and I was giving them their notes afterwards, and one of them, she had done a really lovely job. Like she clearly knew who her character was, knew the things that he was struggling with, and yet there was just a lack of depth. And so we were talking about it, and it's like the way that the character talks is he's very calm. He's always the one trying to de-escalate a situation, trying to be like, no, let's just sit down, have some tea, let's figure this out. But at the same time, he's struggling with the fact that something that he invented is literally killing people in a way that he didn't intend. He's struggling with the fact that it's actually beginning to kill him. And so within this like calm facade and this de-escalation, there's actually like a lot of pain and frustration there. And I was like, when we look at people around us, like you're saying, no one is just one thing. Like, no one is just one emotion all the time. No one is just one characteristic. And actually, the things that are under those things are the things that are way more important and way more truthful, because the thing that's on top is just what I want you to see, and probably may have nothing to do with who I actually am or what I'm actually wrestling with down inside.
Exactly. And I often feel like theater or, film, like through acting, it's one of the only places that we're allowed to have space to live with some of that, to bring out some of that darker stuff, those darker things, and be with them, which is healing to people. It's healing to the performers who get to wrestle with it publicly, openly, because it's not polite. It's not okay to show that stuff out in the world, so we all just hide it, which just leads to, we just carry around this massive bag of shadows that we're ashamed of, versus just integrating it into who we are, which is the healthier way to be with it. But it's healing to you as an artist to explore that. It's certainly healing for a high school student to get to explore that, in class.
Mm-hmm.
And it's healing for an audience to witness it and to get to have that catharsis of, yeah, okay, something that came up a lot when I was in grad school for acting was always, what do you do when you play? You have to play a murderer. It's like, oh God, that's so far from me. I would never do that. It's like, okay, so you have to sit with the question of what would get me there? Like, what confluence of circumstances would have to happen to me that could get me to where this character is? And just kind of like be with that, because we're all capable of all things. That's the truth of it, whether we want to, and most of us choose not to go there, but there are things we have to acknowledge that, yeah, could I get there? Oh, I got to find the path. And then that makes us all more connected to each other. Like, we're all wrestling with the same stuff. We're all human.
Mm-hmm. We are all human.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. Sorry, I'm having trouble.
No, that's all good. I guess I'm looking at my questions here, and so I think we've just spent, a lot of time unearthing like the big noble whys behind why acting is important, and why we both feel like it's our purpose on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just want to spend a couple minutes on like why it gets so frustrating, like, because it's not always like that, right? Like, certainly we've seen performances, or we've been part of things that it's like not quite getting at that. Like, I know for me that's very frustrating. Have you experienced that? And if so, like, what about that is frustrating for you?
Just to clarify the question, you're saying like when theater isn't treated with as much like weight and power. Yeah. I don't know. I've thought about this a lot, because I do think that there is a place, in my opinion, for theater that's just entertainment. That's just like the Disney movie level of like, I'm just going to turn my brain off and watch this fun thing. Like, that is a beautiful thing. And I think that there's so much room for that. But I also think that there's a responsibility, and I think that especially in children's theater, I'm very passionate about children's theater, there can just be a total glossing over of the fact that there is this power, and that there is even just this change that it can give to the actors and theater makers themselves that ends up creating not only mediocre theater, but also just bad habits and a lack of understanding of what you're doing. I just think about, like, I grew up doing so much children's theater, and I'm so grateful for it. Like, I would not be where I am today without all of that. But at the same time, it's always just like, okay, we're in rehearsal and we're doing this, and we've got to just like get this show up as fast as possible, and we're doing, Peter Pan or whatever, and it's just got to be a show without the acknowledgement of using the story to help us understand ourselves or the world around us better, without the acknowledgement of even just like the beauty in acting tools and in the fact that as actors we get to know our bodies really well because there are tools. There's just so much lack of understanding of the things that I think are actually worth understanding in theater for the goal of just creating a product, but then that makes that product less good. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
No, that's exactly the same. And I think only to build on what you said, I think the result of that for me is frustrating, is that if enough of that happens, there are enough places not treating it with the respect it deserves, just doing the show because we've got 20 kids and we need to make them make Peter Pan happen, versus like, let's talk about the why and let's like really treat this with respect. It gives theater and the arts a bad name, and people sort of see it as frivolous and superfluous and unnecessary to the fabric of our lives, versus when you treat it with respect, it comes with all of the understanding of, oh, I see why we're doing this, and this does make us better people, and this, we've got a clear reason, not just we need to put on a show because it's a thing to do. And if enough people have those negative experiences with it, then they sort of discount it, and then we're all worse off for it. I think societally, as artists, which we already have a hard enough time, constantly needing to prove our worth for people who don't understand. So yeah, that to me is frustrating, because I think that we do have a responsibility, because we do have an enormous amount of power as artists to reshape society to be more empathetic and more understanding, which God knows we all need.
Yeah. No, I think we talk a lot, like as a company, about the why are we doing this show? And I think that there can be beauty in just saying, okay, the why of why we're doing this show is because the world is really hard and we want to make people laugh. Like, that is a beautiful why. It doesn't always have to be like, we need to give people this deeper understanding of politics or, whatever, this other community. But both of those whys are equally important, and there still needs to be a why. You know what I mean? Like, it can't just be, the why can't be, like you're saying, that there are 20 kids whose parents are paying us to create some end product. The why has to be teaching these kids something specific, or teaching the audience something specific, or whatever. But there needs to be a why, even if it's not that deep.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you say that your understanding of theater and its importance has evolved since, like, you mentioned your dad was not a big theater buff? And so, like, just share a little bit about that evolution of your understanding, I guess.
Oh boy, I don't know that we have time for that. That's a big one. No, that's a big question, and it's an important question. I do want to give it its due weight. So I think we're keeping a list of future episode topics, but I would love to talk. I would love to have a discussion about how that process evolved, because I certainly think that there was a time in my life where, I always knew that I was supposed to act and be an actor, and I just was just constantly doing it since I was a kid. But certainly my my understanding of the importance of it and the importance of giving it respect and treating the craft with respect has evolved enormously over time, and I'm sure that yours has as well. So I think that's a good future episode topic for us to explore. What do you think?
Amazing. I love it. I look forward to it.
Same.
Good. Yay.
Yay.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good ending spot for today then. Thank you guys so much for listening. It was so fun to just get to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, everyone out there. A reminder to please follow us on social media. You can find more episodes of this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure that you subscribe to us on all of those channels so that you get notifications when we post new episodes. We post new episodes every Thursday. And between now and next time, we just want you to think and answer the question for yourself. How does what you do, whether it's acting or not, change the world or reshape our society?
Yeah. And feel free to email us your answers at podcast@outerlooptheater.org. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, please. Yeah. Please email us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Till next time. Bye.